Hello and welcome, Exiles. Today I want to show you guys how to craft 50 movement speed boots from start to finish. I can guarantee that these boots will have double T1 ES with 3 good suffixes and movement speed for my white base. And with the boots, I can guarantee a T1 life roll with movement speed with 3 solid suffixes as well. Now, boots prefixes, as far as I can tell, they're not very valuable in my opinion outside of the life roll, unless you're playing, for example, you really want to invest into armor or evasion, or maybe a bit more ES, but you can make that call for yourself. Right now, I'm just going to show life plus movement speed in terms of a life build pair of boots. Now, to start things off with, we're going to be using perfect augments and perfect transmutes and annulment orbs. The goal here when doing this step is essentially trying to get 2 ideal affixes we want. For the boots to guarantee the double T1 ES rolls, we need to hit T1% ES. And for the boots, I really want to hit T1 life before I move on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and transmute these. And what I'm going to be looking for here is either a good suffix or the ideal prefix. So for example, rarity, in my mind, that's a good suffix. So I will augment that. If we don't hit life, we will have to annul. And as for the other pair, mana, I don't really care for it. We're going to annul right away. And we're going to do a process of annulling plus augmenting until we hit a good suffix plus the ideal prefix we're looking for. In this case, I'm looking for T1 ES. This one hit life, so this would be great for the life pair of boots example, but I'm not really trying to do that right now on this side, so we're going to go ahead and annul there and try to work our way back to getting ES. So there's ES. We really want to hit a good ideal suffix here, like res. Fantastic. This is something we can work with. Now on the other pair, we're going to look for life real quick, and hopefully the rarity stays. Rarity stays. Mana. Don't really want mana. I'm going to have to annul there. And we're just going to keep working through. Every time we get a prefix we don't want, that's when we roll over. And when we hit life, we stop. Now, just for context, on the odds of doing these sorts of things where you're looking for an ideal prefix, there aren't really many. There's life, there's mana, there's your 3 defense stats, and then there's movement speed. So pretty much every single time you're rolling for a prefix, you have a 1 in 6 to get basically your ideal prefix. Technically, flat ES, you can also work with that on the ES pair of boots, but let's go for the rest of the craft. And then for the suffixes, I'd say about half the stats are good. Res is good, main attribute's good, rarity's good. So there's a lot of decent hits that are good. And then freeze duration, unfortunately, is under the category of, I would say, not great. So I'm going to try to annul save. And of course, we lost our life. So we're going to have to keep going here. And maybe we get back our life. What have I done? What have I done? Don't want that. Don't want that. Now, I will say this. One thing about going for the life pair of boots, it might make sense to go to do this craft on an ES pair, for example, because if you hit something like this where you have T1 flat, that can work for crafting into an ES pair that you can resell, because spending a lot on these annuls can get a little bit taxing. Like the ES pair of boots, life is a hit, main percent is a hit, flat is a hit, whereas this hybrid pair when I'm just trying to hit life, those what would be hits are not hits, unfortunately. Int is good, life is good. All right, so we have 2 pairs of boots with ideal stats. Now the next step of the craft is going to be the same for both. I'm forcing on a suffix that is guaranteed good. In this example, I'm going to be using either Essence of Thawing, Grounding, or Insulation. These guarantee a T3 level res, which is pretty good for the pair of boots. These pair of boots, most of them are item level 81 or lower. 82 gives you access to T1 res and 35 movement speed, but those don't exist with 2 sockets. They just don't really exist. They're very expensive with 2 sockets. So generally, you're going to be buying a base that's level 80 or lower. I would recommend in the 75 to 80 range because that gives you access to most of the T2 rolls. So anyways, we're going to go over here. We're going to add and we're going to make these pairs of boots have 2 suffixes. So this is a fantastic situation. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to force on a abyssal suffix. And the way you do this is you do dextral necromancy. Next desecration attempt will add a suffix plus a rib. So you'll see we add a suffix to both of these. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're adding 30% movement speed. And the way we do this is Essence of Haste combined with Omen of Dextral Crystallization. This says you can only remove suffixes because we don't want to remove the T1 ES or the T1 life. We want to protect those rolls. So we'll click Dextral Crystallization and then we'll click Haste. And we removed the lower tier res roll we had. And we removed we'll see what we get here. I think we removed okay, both of these removed the lower tier res roll. Okay, so you see how we have a item which has movement speed, ideal prefix, life, ideal prefix, and then ideal suffixes of a veiled mod, or a not veiled mod, a desecrated mod. And then now we're ready for the next step. So the next step in this process right here for these boots to guarantee T1ES is actually going to be a combination of greater exalt, perfect exalt, and homogeneous omen. So we have omen of greater exalt, omen of homogenizing. What this does is it says, hey, you have to add affixes that have tags on the item. Now this set of boots has T1ES, which has the defense tag, and it has lightning, which has elemental and lightning tags. So if you go through and you go over to these tags here and you look at these boots, you'll notice, well, this is the armor base, but if you look at the int base, for example, you'll notice for whatever reason, this hybrid defense stat does not have a defense tag. Why? I don't know. But essentially what that means is if we perfect exalt, we cannot hit T2. We can only hit T1ES with homogenizing. The only prefix that has a tag is the %ES currently on the boots. So we can only hit T1 flat ES, guaranteeing the double T1ES. And then the lightning roll, which has an elemental tag, can hit any of the other resistances, or it can hit one of the elemental ailment mitigations. Now, if you wanted to be a bit more cautious about this and you say, okay, well, I don't want to risk rolling shock duration, chill duration, freeze duration, because maybe you don't want this. Well, then you go into a situation where instead of going for omen of greater exaltation, you would then go for exalted orb will only add prefix mods. So if I click this exalted orb and I click homogenizing and I do perfect exalt, it says the orb will only add a prefix. So this will force on T1ES. Right? So that hit T1ES, fantastic. This boot has an ideal situation. Now, how do we finish the suffixes? So we could blind slam here and just try to hope we hit a good res, but we still have one more card on the table to help us force a good outcome. And that card is, one thing I should have said beforehand is, before I slammed the ES, I did the steps kind of in the wrong order. I should have fractured first. And the reason for this is the abyssal mod here is counted towards the 4 total mods you need to click a fraction orb. But as far as I can tell, you cannot fracture it. So for example, before I added the T1 ES, I should have gone for the fracture because it would give me a 1 in 3 chance to get lightning res rather than the 1 in 4 I have right now. So for example, on this pair where I have the int roll, I'm going to try to fracture right now to see if I can hit the int. That protects it and that guarantees we win the 1 in 50, whereas this one I have to take a 1 in 4 and I'm trying to hit the lightning res. Now I hit the ES, it is what it is, that will do. And now we move on to the next step of the craft, which is the Omen of Dextral Crystallization and the Essence of Horror. What this does is this will guarantee remove a suffix when we click the orb, so it won't hurt any of our prefixes we already have there. They're protected. And then it will be forced to remove a suffix. And this will add on a suffix we want. Now, the reason we have the desecrated mod on there is to have a stat that if it gets removed, that's okay, because it means we can always put on another desecration mod guaranteed to try to force a good affix. Whereas if it removes the lightning res, then it's a lot less likely that we can force on a good affix, if that makes sense. So this is a 50-50 shot here. If it removes the lightning res, we're kind of bummed because that last affix is way more risky to hit something good. If it removes the desecrated mod, then we're kind of pretty happy about that because we can always force on another desecrated mod. So in this case, with this one, we are guaranteed to remove the desecrated mod because the fractured int is protected. See, removes the desecrated mod, and I can always go back and re-add the desecrated mod. So those boots are virtually done. They're at the finish line. Whereas these boots, it's going to be a 50-50 risk. Hopefully it doesn't remove the lightning res. It removed the lightning res. Unfortunate. That's how it goes. We're going to have to blind slam for the last suffix, and hopefully we hit something decently comparable to lightning res, because we can't really realistically, how do I put this? We don't have a lot of avenues to force a specific given outcome. That's what I'm trying to say, essentially. So we're going to go ahead and do a greater exalt here because I don't really want to send a perfect exalt. They're kind of expensive. They're like 3 divines a pop. I think it's worth it when you get the guaranteed T1ES, but I'm not sure on the rest of the affixes. So this one, if we had hit the desecrated mod, we could force another desecrated mod to have the perfect, basically, suffix finish. But for right now, we're going to have to settle with the greater exalt, and we're just going to hope it hits something good. And it hit lightning res, which I'm pretty happy about. Res is pretty good. It wasn't an ideal roll. Granted, this item would look a lot better with 40 res than 23, but we'll take it. This item's still insanely good to have socketed effect, 2 sockets, and 300 ES. Now, for the finish of these items, we will go for the Abyssal Echoes on the Unveil. So we'll go ahead and click Abyssal Echoes. We'll put this in here, and we're basically fishing for hybrid res. That's really the ideal stat we want. Or a T1 res or T2 res, that's very good. We'll take that as well. So we'll take the T2 res, fantastic. If you get a good stat, just take it. Don't click the reroll. Don't necessarily gamble. If you get a good stat, don't look it in the eyes and turn it down. Those boots are fantastic. See what I said? I said double T1ES, movement speed, 3 good suffixes, start to finish. Now for these boots, life, movement speed, 3 good suffixes. Let's bring it home. Abyssal mods give us good lightning res. That is a keep for me. I'm just going to take that. I think that's quite good. We could click reroll and gamble on getting the hybrid res. You get hybrid res a lot on these, and hybrid res is a very good stat. It would be better than this. But as I said before, if you get a good stat like this, just take it. Don't necessarily play the gamble, because what could happen is you play the gamble and it gives you some ultimately pretty bad options, and then you have to start spending omens of lights and redoing and retrying, and that can get a little bit costly. If somebody sees your boots and they'll see that it has a desecrated mod there, they know they can reroll that stat themselves. If lightning res isn't ideal for them, they can take these boots and go turn it into hybrid res or some other stat they're looking for. So that is how you craft 50 movement speed boots from start to finish from scratch. This is one of the biggest things where in PoE 2, I was not happy with crafting. I said, okay, you can't really force things, or you can't really reliably make things. With a lot of the changes they did this league, they allowed things like this to happen, where you can have a detailed plan to take an item from start to finish. And boots is a good example of one of the items you can do that with. Some other items are less straightforward, but hopefully this was a good video to give you guys an idea of how to make some sweet boots for yourself. And when I say 50 movement speed, it's of course contingent on the 100% socketed effect item and the 5 movement speed rune. That gives you 10% movement speed per socket, and then 30% on the boots. That's how the 50 movement speed is there. All right, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video about how to craft some boots. Enjoy, and good luck on your own crafts.